I don't know why I didn't realize this. I feel like a cotton-headed ninny muggins. Hello and welcome to the Faded Wildflower Crochet. My name is Rachel, and today is another episode of Will It Ami, which is a series on my channel where we test out different types of yarn and see if they work for amigurumi. And along the way, you can watch me make a cute plushie. So if that sounds like fun, then keep watching. For today's video, we are going to be testing out Premier's Dream Chenille yarn, which I found at the Dollar Tree. The Dollar Tree and I are kind of having a moment right now. Lots of ups and downs. Am I in a toxic relationship with the Dollar Tree? Unsure. Anyways, we are going to test out this yarn by making this little cutie, which is a free pattern that I found on Instagram. I will link it down below. I believe the user was called Nook Hook. Something about nooks and hooks, which sounds like a Dr. Seuss book, but anyways, I will link it if you're interested in making one. But I did change the pattern around a little bit because I can never leave well enough alone. I made the head a little bit bigger and I changed the spikes just a little bit, but I will link it down below if you're interested in making one. But I made this cutie in Premier's Just Chenille, which you can also find at the Dollar Tree. I already know that I like the Just Chenille, so I thought we would see how it compares to the Dream Chenille. Which do we like better? Does this one shed as bad as this one? We will see. Okay, here is a closer look at this yarn. The texture of it is really interesting. So it's almost kind of like a ribbon, and then the chenille is on one side of the ribbon. Can you see that? In comparison to this type of yarn, which if you've worked with the chenille yarn, you know it's usually like a string in the middle and then the fuzzy chenille all around it. Whereas on this yarn, it's just on one side. And this is also quite a bit thinner. So this does say it is a size 4. And I know this yarn says it's a size 6, which I actually kind of disagree with. I feel like it's thinner than that. And I do feel like this is actually thinner than a size 4. So I'm not really sure where yarns get their measurements from, but it's kind of like clothing sizes where it's like sometimes you're medium, sometimes you're small, sometimes you're large. Like you never really know. I'm not really sure. But anyways, these are 73 yards in these skeins. And I do have this, like I said, this is all I have left of these two colors, but I have this one in a different color, which these come in 65 yards. So you actually do get a little bit more with this, but like I said, it is quite a bit thinner. So we'll see how this works, but this is the color Cupid. And this is the color Blossom. So without further ado, I think it's time to get started. Okay, here is where I've gotten so far. And y'all, this is just a fur yarn. I don't know why I didn't realize this. I feel like a cotton-headed ninny muggins. Because for some reason, when the label says chenille, like it says chenille right there, I expect it to be like this. I thought it was just going to be a chenille yarn that was a little bit thinner. But no, it's just a fur yarn. I wish somewhere on the label it called itself fur yarn, but it says chenille. So my brain was just not computing based on just touching this and like feeling the texture of it. I was like, oh, it's just kind of like interesting and strange. No, it's just a fur yarn. I did use a size 3.25 millimeter crochet hook, which is working just fine. But yeah, this yarn is really hard to see your stitches on, so I'm definitely having to concentrate quite a bit. So I'm sorry if I am not getting as much footage as I normally would, but I'm having to concentrate on this pattern. First of all, I probably should have picked a pattern that I am more familiar with, like one of my own patterns that I've done a million times, but I'm having to concentrate on the pattern. I'm concentrating on filming, and then, you know, this yarn, you can't see your stitches at all. So you're really just having to feel your way around, which is fine, but it is a little bit more difficult than I expected. So I'm sure so many of you guys that are familiar with fur yarns were like, girl, it's just a fur yarn. Like, why are you impressed with the texture? Like, this is just a fur yarn. Why didn't you just call it that? I just wasn't expecting it. I wasn't paying attention. Anyways, I'm going to go get comfy on my couch and finish this guy up, but I do think it's going to be quite cute, but it is a little bit more difficult than I bargained for. Okay, our little guy is done. I do think he is quite cute. I did mess up on the pattern a couple times, but was I willing to go back and frog it? No, I still think he's pretty cute. Now, could I go back and cut out the part where I didn't realize that this was a fur yarn? Could I make myself sound smart, do a little voiceover and be like, oh, we're working with a fur yarn today? Could I do that? Yes. Will I? No, because I want to keep it real with you guys. I did not realize that this was a fur yarn. But let's talk some pros and cons of working with this yarn today. So the pros are that it is so soft. The thing about fur yarns is that you are going to get a super soft little plushie. I love that about it. The other pro is that it is pretty easy to work with in terms of, well, I was about to say that it glides on the hook nicely. That's not quite right. I'm being interrupted. Hello. Did you feel like you didn't get enough screen time today? I'm so sorry about that. I know. It was kind of a short video. You didn't get as much screen time. I know. Okay, before I was so rudely interrupted, I was about to say that the hook glides nicely with this yarn, but it doesn't exactly glide just because of the nature of this yarn, but it doesn't snag. It obviously doesn't split. So in that way, it's very easy to work with. In my opinion, the biggest pro is that it doesn't shed. So this pattern does not require much sewing. You just have to sew in the end. But I was trying to sew it, like I was going through several stitches just to see if it would fall apart, and it really didn't. So that is quite nice. I think I've only ever worked with a fur yarn one other time, and it was a very thick fur yarn, and it was falling apart everywhere. Like even as I was crocheting with it, it was shedding everywhere, and I was like, I'm never gonna work with a fur yarn again. That was years ago. But this does not shed. It's not shedding now that it's completed. Like there's no fur flying everywhere. And even with the Just Chenille yarn, like even though you just have to sew up the end, even with that, the yarn is starting to fall apart. So that is quite nice. Now let's talk cons. So obviously this is a fur yarn and it does not say that on the label. Now that could just be me. I think it was probably just me being silly, not paying attention, reading Chenille and thinking that it's going to be like this. So that was probably user error more than anything, but I do kind of wish that they would call it something differently other than Dream Chenille, because when you hear that and it sounds so similar to the name Just Chenille, you think, oh, they're going to be the same thing, maybe just this one's a little bit thinner or something like that. But they're actually completely different types of yarn. So I do wish that they labeled it a little bit better, but that could just be me. Now, the con with probably any type of fur yarn is that it's quite hard to see your stitches. I'm an experienced crocheter and I was struggling a little bit. I'm not experienced with fur yarn, so if you have a lot of experience with fur yarn, you're not going to have a problem with this, but with a fur yarn, you really have to kind of feel your way around. You can't see your stitches hardly at all. And so that is just difficult on its own. But I think also with it being such a thin yarn, your stitches are also quite tight. So because of that, it's like really, really hard to feel your stitches and to make sure you're at the right spot. So if you're going to work with this yarn and it's your first time working with a fur yarn, I would definitely recommend starting with a pattern that you're very familiar with. Unlike me, I'm not that familiar with this pattern. I've made it a couple of times, but I wish I would have picked something where I knew what I was doing a little bit better. But again, that was user error. So will Dream Chenille Ami? Yes, it definitely will. Will I be repurchasing this yarn? I am not sure. I actually, in the end, liked it better than I thought that I would. As I got used to it, as I kind of got into the pattern, I actually do really like it. I think that it looks quite cute. I think these two are honestly equally as cute. I like that this doesn't shed. I like how soft it is. I like that even though I messed up on the pattern, like I definitely messed up a few times, you can't really tell. I feel like fur yarn covers a multitude of sins when it comes to messing up on patterns. Like you just can't even really tell as much. Now, it doesn't have stitch definition, which I don't really mind for something like this, but that is something to keep in mind. If you like seeing your stitches, if you like stitch definition, this is definitely not the yarn for you. Here is a little size comparison of our two little guys. It's really not as drastic as I thought it was going to be because I had to use quite a small hook on this guy, but because the fur kind of adds some volume to him, he looks bigger. So I think it's pretty cute. I'm not sure, like I said, if I will be repurchasing this yarn. I'm definitely going to use up the rest of what I have and probably make some more little cuties like this, or maybe like, I think like a penguin would be really cute, something like that, or even a mushroom would be really adorable. I'm imagining a furry mushroom right now, and that sounds so cute. So will I be using the rest of this yarn? For sure. Once I use the rest of it, I may get a better idea of if I want to repurchase this or not. For me, I'm not sure if it's worth the hassle of not being able to see my stitches, but you know, the end result is just so darn cute that I just might be repurchasing this. Okay, so I made the little mushroom. How freaking cute. And completely against my will, I fell in love with this yarn. I did all of this sewing and there was no shedding. So I decided to go look it up and see if I could buy some, like if I could order some from the Premier website, and I couldn't find any. So I think it's discontinued. So is this review completely useless? Maybe, but I'm going to put it up anyway, just in case you do see this at your local Dollar Tree. I'm about to go and see if I can find some at mine. Thank you so much for watching today's video and for helping me make this guide today. Have you ever tried Dream Chenille? Have you tried fur yarn? Have you ever seen this yarn at the dollar store and not realized it was fur yarn like me, or am I the only one? If you did like today's video, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment below, and let me know what other kind of yarns you want to see me try next. You can subscribe and stick around. You can follow me on all my social medias. It's The Faded Wildflower everywhere. And again, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.